Welcome into another edition of the Kevin and Jason Show. I'm one of your hosts today, Kevin Misseri, here on a Victory Monday, a big 17-16 win over the New York Jets. And I'm here with Jason Shannon. We'll be going over, do a game recap. We will be talking about potential Bills quarterbacks who they're going to play against this week against the Giants. We want to talk about that segment as we had a poll up, as well as maybe answer a few questions. And it's always fun on a Victory Monday. But Jason, how are you today?
Everything is perfect, Kevin. We are 1-0. We are undefeated. There are 15 teams that are 0-1 and 2 more that are tied. We are ahead of all of them. We are the Buffalo Bills.
We are. That brings up a good point. We are the Buffalo. Jason, are you one of those guys that the New York State Bills thing, Jets jersey? Because I am. I think it's a fun storyline. Are you on the Bills play in New York and the Jets play in Jersey, or are you like that semantics?
I mean, the truth is the truth.
Okay. So you're pro. You're pro.
They would pay for a lease in New York or buy a stadium in New York if they wanted to play in New York. There's plenty of teams that play in New York. The Knicks play in New York. The Nets play in New York. They wanted to cheap out and do a stadium in New Jersey. I am fine with the truth.
How about if the Islanders can play in New York? That's my one, right? If the Islanders can play there,
right?
That's my tiebreaker, but they
Build
don't.
A stadium in Long Island.
So I like to use that. It's always a fun argument. They get pretty riled up, and then there's a contingent of Bills fans that are like, well, it's a stupid thing to say to Jets fans. And I'm like, my New York City Bills fans love it, though. So that's my tiebreaker, is the people in their region, Bills fans, what do they feel about it? And generally, I think I even saw Buffalo Wins, Joe, say he uses it. And we know Joe, he usually goes into anything anyone else says. He loved it. So I think it's a good tiebreaker that you can use that in debates today, friends. Tomorrow, the next day, week 17, you can use that the Bills are the New York team 1-0, and the New Jersey teams are both 0-2, but they're both losing one game apiece. So, and the Bills get to play again in New York. That's pretty rare too. So, Jason, this game was crazy. We're going to start at the top because I think that's the best place to begin this thing. You had what looked to be an incredibly pass-happy Brian Dable go out there, and I know Josh Allen checked a few runs away. You saw Devin Singletary in there getting the majority of snaps even early on. A lot of people were like, well, Devin Singletary should have taken more snaps prior to the fourth quarter. Well, he was. He had the majority of snaps. I think, Jason, you have some of those snap counts for us that we could talk about. But Right at the top here in the first quarter, I mean, it was we're going to start on the first drive just for fun. Drove the field, made some nice throws. Had pretty good numbers in the first quarter, actually. Josh Allen took a sack, which probably his lone bad play. He's got to protect that ball there. That's the one thing definitely I'm putting on him, that first fumble. Protect that ball. You live to fight another day. You are moving the ball. You just kind of eat that. Was that on third down? I can't remember if that was a second or third down play.
I'm not sure. I think it was a third down.
I think it was a third down. Okay. Well, either way, you could have gotten yourself, I think that would have knocked him out of field goal range right there. Would have at least done something that the Jets had the Bills in all game, or at least for the first three quarters, was flip the field position. At least put them down to the 5 there rather than the 40 or 45 wherever they recovered that. So I think that was first and foremost a bad play by Josh Allen. But prior to that, he was looking good. He was looking confident. I thought the checks he was making were great. We had the mismatches. We had the DeMarcos out there splitting wide as a receiver as to cause mismatches and keep a linebacker on the field. So you saw some of that early on in this game and was working. And then I think they overthought it and decided to not run the ball. First quarter thoughts, Jason. We're going to start there.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's positives and negatives to take out of it. 18 straight passes to start the game. It seems like you're dealing with fire. I will say that Josh Allen looked good on the passes that he completed were very accurate. Like they were exactly where you would want the ball, which I think is, before I think people had said, he doesn't have a very good chance of being ascending to a great quarterback, because not only does he sometimes make suspect decisions, but he also he misthrows the ball. He doesn't put it where he needs to on the receiver. And other than the interception that bounced off of Beasley, which wasn't a terrible throw, but wasn't perfect. I mean, he was really spot on his throwing. He looked accurate. He obviously threw it with a lot of zip, maybe sometimes even a little too hard for his receivers. But the accuracy stuff was really good. The problem is that you have a guy that throws the ball that hard, sometimes makes bad decisions. Even on high percentage throws, you're really testing, the law of averages or the law of turnovers or whatever. You're really testing it when you make him throw 18 times in a row or when you drop back 18 times in a row. Something like that might happen. Even beyond his throwing, he's been prone to fumbles. So, again, we're getting him the ball more, having him drop back more against, what's supposed to be a pretty good, front seven for the Jets. And you're kind of tempting fate. And they put the ball in his hands a lot. And 90% of the time, I thought that he really did the right thing. But, he had those turnovers. And
he was
even on a play that wasn't his fault. I think you're tempting fate there. I also will say that I think part of the negative too is that they were very safe throws. And even though he was completing passes and he was moving the field and doing it in a very systematic way, there wasn't a lot of chance taking in the entire first half as far as the throws go. And I do think that when you turn him into a 8-yard passer or whatever, even with open receivers, even with Cole Beasley open, even with John Brown doing a good job of getting open, his tight ends, etc. I think you are using something that he's a little less good at too much and not utilizing one of the things that makes him, unique among other quarterbacks, which is his ability to hit that deep ball and the ability to create threats in the defense. So in general, I think that the plan was executed mostly well, but twice disastrous. And but I'm not positive that was the perfect plan. And you saw in the second half how things sort of changed when they mixed things up. But I don't know. That's just me.
15 for 23 for 141 yards in the first half. I think anyone signs off on that completion percentage and those yardage numbers. Obviously you have to add in the tipped pick and the bobbled pick, which, we've played a lot of flag football in our life, at different levels of football throughout life. You just don't tip the ball into the air, though. That's just incredibly unlucky to throw the ball from the ground into the air for a pick six. That's just happens once a year for you, maybe twice in 16 games, maybe. I'm going to go with once for that, to where it's at worst case scenario, that ball needs to hit the ground. That's worst case. You can't have it hit off you into the air. That's catchable into the air, not only in the air, that deflects off of you, a low throw, which wasn't a great throw. I'm not going to sit here and say it was. But that is definitely catchable, and the right receiver who likes to go down for the ball makes that catch easily. You don't bobble that into the air for a pick six. That's unlucky. That's unfortunate. A tip pick, and we talked about this off air, a tipped pick. I don't know the statistics on it. I should look it up, actually. It's not very good. You're going to pick that off on balls batted there. It's definitely going to go for an incomplete pass, but to have that batted up in the air and end a drive, it's unlucky. It's not great. It's a little bit falls on the quarterback there. I have a little more problem with the two fumbles, but in theory, neither of them were back-breaking fumbles. The pick six,
one of them literally didn't matter. It looked like they were stopped on that.
That was my point.
Whatever was going to happen.
That was going to be my point, was that 4th and 1 long one, and after the 3rd and 2 quarterback sneak. I get the theory, but I don't like that at all. And then he's rushing to the line with 3 on the play. So we call 4 timeouts for the defensive to get a sack. 4 timeouts yesterday through the first and second half for defensive alignments. Fine. I didn't complain. One I thought was unnecessary, but outside of that, we called 4 of our 6 timeouts on defensive alignments. Your quarterback's rushing in a pretty big spot after turning the ball over. I think at that point would have been 3. Was that at least, it was his 3rd or 4th turnover, that fumble. Had turned it at least twice.
I think it was the 3rd.
Was the 3rd. Okay. So he turned it over twice at that point. He's going to the line of scrimmage. There's 4 on the play clock. They had just had to, I think they just took a delay of game, didn't they, earlier in the series? He's sprinting to the line, and there's 4 on the play clock, and the box is stacked. There's absolutely, Josh Allen probably fumbled that ball because he knew nothing was going to happen there. You call a timeout there and reset. That's all, especially in the first half. That's all I was getting at with that rant.
It's a really important play.
It's a really important play. They had it stopped. The play was stopped. Call a timeout. Don't rush it and fumble it. it doesn't. It adds to the turnover total, but the play was getting stopped. So whether I believe Gore was in the backfield at that point, maybe Singletary runs for a yard or a half of a yard and gets stopped, or it's a fumble. It is what it is. I was more happy to see it wasn't really on Morse. That was more what I wanted to find out from that play. And it didn't seem to be anything with Morse that made that play a fumble. So Josh Allen, I call a timeout. You called 4 on defense. That's all I was trying to get at. You used 4 to get your defense set, which I'm not going to sit here and argue many of those. But at the same time, why aren't you going to use one in a really critical spot on offense when you needed to move the ball after two turnovers prior? That's the whole point there. That was the one I had a little bit of issue with on the coaching staff. I thought they coached a really great game. Other than that, they really did, especially defensively. I thought McDermott had a pretty good game plan, challenged the one on the pass interference, was absolutely pass interference on top of illegal men downfield and like 3 other infractions on the first I forget. I don't remember. It was the Sam Darnold magician play that Brett Murphy didn't tackle him on, would have ended that drive had he made that tackle because he wouldn't have to challenge it, Jason. And then we had a Matt Milano not able on single coverage to cover Bell for their touchdown in the third quarter. And then a lofted, ridiculous pass over the head of Siren Neal. I don't know what he was doing. It should have been a pick on the 2-point conversion. And then a Kerry Vedvik missed field goal to end the first half. As well as a missed extra point. Though I will say, don't like the kicker at all. We watched him in preseason. However, the missed field goal was not his fault. It was a terrible snap and a terrible hold. So it's a cheap out to say it was all on the kicker there. I thought it was a bad special teams play all around, at least on the field goal to end the half. So that was kind of the gist of the Jets scoring between that pick 6 and then the safety, which in soccer, and we have tennis, and we have even bowling. You can't tell me you don't have anything better technology than the one sideline view on that, by the way. I mean,
yeah. I'm not going to argue too hard on it, but it is.
Tennis, man. Tennis has like the best.
Instantaneous, too.
Technology. And we can't even have an angle to see if the other side of the field, he was clearly over. I thought he was over it. I don't know how much it would have mattered, but Jets punter luck on Edwards had it.
That if the game's on Sunday Night Football, that has that angle. It just seems like
there's more angles for sure. Yeah. There's more angles.
Oh, I mean, there's double the amount of cameras, and it's just weird that a game.
I thought we had that pylon cam that was made in Buffalo or is that just on Sunday and Monday Night Football? I don't know the pylon.
I don't think they use that on Sundays really, or during the day.
Okay. Well, there you have it. So I thought that was cheap, but a safety, you'll see 1 or 2 of those a year against you, sometimes none in a season. So you had that in this game. You had the bobbled up in the air Cole Beasley pick. You had the tipped pick. You had the dropped 4th down fumble that Josh Allen is a good runner. He's a good protector of the football. That won't happen. And he's a good scrambler. You won't have that happen where he gets the ball knocked out. He was trying to make a play there. So you had 4 bad plays that all happened in one game, Jason. If you could tell me to sign off on that as 4 of some bad plays of the season, I'd put them in one game for this reason. And then you're able to come out with a win in this game. I'm pretty happy. So second quarter, not much happened. Josh Allen went 7 for 11 for 76 and an interception. That tipped interception, that would have been that one. They went down and missed a field goal. That we nailed on it. That ended the half 6-0. At that point, I think everyone was thinking 141 yards. Like I said, 15 for 23 for Josh Allen. If you would have told me 15 for 23 for 141 with no context, I would have been, okay, yeah, where do I sign on that?
And then the 4 turnovers.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. That's and the 4 unlucky turnovers, all on their own aren't that unlucky, but to have them all happen in a half of football, it's not like he was missing out routes, Jason. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's not like he was Nate Petermaning it up in the air, and Josh does do that.
No, the completions were on target. I mean, even the one which I think was the worst throw of the day, which was the one to Marcus May that got called back on like an unrelated penalty. That's just bad decision football. That wasn't an
arm strength.
Throw.
It wasn't.
He was really trying to force something that wasn't there. At least from my vantage point, it looked like that.
Yeah, I think he had 2. The Marcus May one was later in the game that he dropped it, right? And then the one
that he caught and the one that he dropped.
Yeah, the one that was it him on both?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
He should have 2 interceptions.
Okay, at least one. You can't do it. It was holding. I watched the playback. Like you can't. You can't hold the slot receiver. Yeah. That could have been where that ball went. Josh still shouldn't have thrown it, but that's You can't. I'm not gonna. That could have been where the ball went there. So hold happened. It wasn't like a phantom hold. It wasn't like the one thing I want to talk about the first half that to kind of wrap the first half up before we get into the third and fourth quarter. The taunting on Feliciano when they didn't show it. They showed was Singletary kind of push Mosley for tapping and pointing in the face of Josh Allen. Now, I'm not sitting here advocating for a Mosley penalty, but I'm certainly saying that's a penalty if you're going to call something marginal on Feliciano. Did you see and no one seemed to have saw this penalty. It was 3 points right there. We can't forget that 3 points. That was basically a turnover because we had, walkout, Corey Bajorquez there. So did you like that would have been a 6-3 game at least. So, and I think we might have been able to kick a field goal on if Allen would have just held the ball. It could have easily been a 6-6 game, and that's like worst case scenario. So for 6-0, I really think that's an unlucky half of football.
Yeah, and they got through it. I mean, there's not many times that you're going to go -4 in turnovers and then, be down 6-0.
You see what happens with Peterman on -4, -5, and it's 50-3.
It's a game killer. Now, I mean, we were fortunate. The defense made some of our luck, but there were bounces all the way around. Again, we were fortunate to face that kicker, and really fortunate for them to make the decision to not re-sign Jason Myers, a Pro Bowl kicker, and then Meyer threw a bunch of terrible kickers all preseason to realize that they probably should have signed the Pro Bowler that was already on the team. Man. That's why I am Hauschka's got to be really, really bad for me to want to get out of that, because there's teams that they go on like a 3-year cycle of trying to find a guy, and they're going through them, and Chicago's been on that train. Tampa seems to have been on that train forever.
It's like relief pitcher in baseball. Like, you just can't figure it out once you get in that loophole. So,
and the Jets made their luck with that. I mean,
right.
Again, they could have just re-signed the guy, and
exactly
they didn't. And so
they don't like special teamers in New York. They let Roberts go. Like,
it was very strange. And I am not Mr. Special Teams.
Me neither. They don't have Danny
extra roster spots, but I do feel like a Pro Bowler each one of those positions, like maybe we should retain one. I don't know.
Yeah. I will say, though, as we get into the third quarter now, after the first half there, so 6-0, the Bills were down, obviously. The thing about the third quarter, so the Jets started to play the only quarter they played good offensively. They didn't play very good football either in the first, second, or fourth quarter. But in the third quarter, they played pretty decent. Le'Veon Bell started to do a little bit. Bill's defense still had him pretty bottled up. Did a really good job against Le'Veon, even though he got his. I mean, the one-on-one with Milano, really with any linebacker, it's going to go, advantage Bell. They got him out in space against Siren Neal at least once or twice. Obviously, Neal was unable to make that with a couple of yards of space in between them. Josh Allen only went 1 for 4 for 11 yards in the third quarter, Jason. We didn't have the ball a ton, but that's when Josh is at his worst, when he's not in rhythm like that. So I think that's also why you saw the pass style to get him going. I mean, that was a typical last year, 2018, before the injury quarter from Josh. Actually, silently, like, not my favorite quarter. I think it was the worst quarter, even though he didn't have turnovers in this game. He went 1 for 4 for 11. Did you have any thoughts of the third quarter here?
Well, it's just hard to get a rhythm, too, because they spent so much time not with the ball at that point. I mean, when you start off the half with the safety, and then the Jets are driving and kind of controlling the game, and Bell was playing pretty well. Oh, by the way, I thought Le'Veon Bell was really good. Like, if I'm a fantasy guy or even the Jets at this point, I do think that he's going to have a really good season.
I have Le'Veon Bell. So.
And I think we did a good job of controlling him at the same time. I think Bell did the most with what?
Even a 17 for 60. Do you think the Bills defense? So then you're saying you think the Bills defense is that good?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I mean, I think they played a running back having a really good game, really great.
Okay.
I think they were both good, and Bell was making guys miss. If that was, I mean, even Ty Montgomery, really, I think that's 17 for 36. I mean, in what he did in the receiving game, and I just thought that.
Yep.
He played well, but yeah, I mean, that was definitely felt like a hopeless quarter. We couldn't sustain anything. Allen wasn't sharp anymore, and it really did start to feel like for the first half of that quarter, especially, that things were just kind of dwindling and, kind of falling within reach. I went on Facebook and made an embarrassing post about how sad I was.
Did you get cold taked? Well, I don't know, and I didn't see what you said.
Oh, no, I just started talking about how I need to find different hobbies on Sundays and eat something that actually makes me happy in life. And I was really, I was really giving up. It was a little tongue in cheek, but
Oh, okay. All
it
right.
was just really like, I was just like, man, I was
It
just
was a
like,
bad
right, this,
quarter, though. The third,
it was a
actually, like I
bad
said,
quarter.
it was worse than the first and second.
The time in the third was just ticking down, and we just didn't really have any answer. And the Jets were slowly driving down, and they got that touchdown, and it was coming after a safety. And then Elam comes out, and now it looks like he's really kind of shook from this whole thing. And I was just thinking, man, this team sucks. Like this Jets team.
Yeah,
Like
they do.
I was thinking at the time, and I'm just like, this really isn't a very good roster. The offensive line isn't playing well at all. They're so thin and at the cornerback right now. You know, the linebacking core is not good, and CJ Mosley's hurt now. But people underrate too that even though he doesn't have a long history of play right now, like Quinn Williams also played even less than CJ Mosley did because of injury. I think he only got 23 plays in this game, where I think CJ Mosley only missed 20 plays. I think Mosley still played 43 out of 63, which
Which would have been all of them to that point.
yeah, which would have been all of them to that point. So, you know, I'm just thinking, man, we can't beat this team. And I got that we were on the road, but we were just looking listless. And I felt like even as we were moving the ball in the first half, we had really blown our opportunity just by being careless with the ball. And then you have to think about our quarterback and what a long week this is going to be, even though he looked sharper in a lot of situations. And then the fourth quarter came. And
yep. I mean, to cap it off, 370 total yards, 14th in the NFL here. 242 passing yards, 16th, rushing yards, 128, 6th. So they had a pretty okay average to above average in some category day. That's what you need from a team that has a top three defense. That's exactly the type of output you need. The only thing that didn't show on the scoreboard because of 4 turnovers was 17 points. It should have easily been 23 to 26, putting you probably in range of having 12th, 10th at most points would have been right in par with your stats. So that does prove to me analytics, and it does show to me some unluckiness with your turnovers because you were playing well. It wasn't like, once again, you were Nathan Peterman missing out routes, throwing balls up in the air, not knowing where receivers were, throwing the ball in the air while you're being hit, etc. So I do think those stats back that up, but you're right, the fourth quarter. As we get into that a little bit, I mean, what more can be said? I mean, fourth quarter for Josh Allen, 8 for 10 for 102 yards and a touchdown. A dropped Cole Beasley was one of the 2 missed throws. That was a great touch throw on a corner route. And then you had...
It stinks that he didn't catch that.
Yeah, it stinks. It should have been 9 for 10 for... I mean, well, he got those yards anyways, probably. So It wouldn't have changed much other than the completion percentage. And then also he had a great rushing. I mean, Josh Allen can still show up athletically. I think 8 for 28, I believe, in the rushing game. And he still shows up even when you're trying to take him away. So he went 10 for 38. I don't know if there's anything in there. No, they didn't kneel the ball. So I have 10 for 38.
10 for 38 and a touch.
Okay. Yeah, that seems more yards than I thought he had. So he had 38 yards, which is still pretty decent for a quarterback, and a great rushing touchdown. So what a fourth quarter by him. And I tweeted out and did pretty well was that Josh Allen was good in the fourth quarter and Sam Darnold wasn't. Like 4.3 average yards per throw, Jason, yards per completion.
Yeah,
41 attempts.
4.3 yards per completion. His completions traveled 2.3 yards in the air, which was second to last in the league, only to Jimmy Garoppolo, and Garoppolo wouldn't have been there if he didn't have like 45 touchdowns called back.
Right, he did.
I think his average attempt, I don't have him up right now, but I believe the average attempt in the air was still like 6.5.
Yep.
He only attempted, I think, 9 out of his 41 throws were attempted over 10 air yards.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the thing is, the difference between these 2 quarterbacks is, even though all those turnovers came at the beginning, one of them made plays and one of them didn't. And one team trusted their quarterback to go and actually do something. And, you know, the Jets' plan was even more flaccid. Like Jameson Crowder set an NFL record in this game with the most receptions under 100 yards in a game. Nobody's ever caught 14 passes a game and went under 100 yards.
He had 99, but yeah.
I mean, that's still that's dinking and dunking. Like, first off, the fact that Jarvis Landry doesn't own that record is amazing. But
For sure.
That's really all they had, and they were using it. And honestly, that was what we were doing in the first half too with Beasley, who I don't know if we want to get into it right now. I hope he gets open. I'll give him that. But the two drops were fairly. Well, the first one was obviously really costly, and the second one certainly could have been if they didn't rebound.
Everyone played solid football, especially at points. To me, I can make a case for anyone, but you still have the case of the missing target. So you had Zay Jones, 5 targets and only catches 2 of them. He's always at a 40% ratio. He's always been that way. He just doesn't catch the ball. I don't know what the deal is. Cole Beasley went 9 for 9 targets and 5 catches. A little bit better of a ratio than Zay. That's at a 55% ratio. You're still looking, 70, 75, 80%. You're just, the bobbled pick was bad. Mm-hmm. He's got to locate the ball over his shoulder. That's what he's supposed to be able to do. It's a perfect throw. One thing if the ball was terribly placed or whatever, and it was on the pick, but that ball just eats the ground. We all live to fight another day on the pick. On the over the shoulder catch, he needs to eat, or he needs to take that ball in. I mean, it's
not an easy Jason Shannon catch anymore, but it's an easy NFL player catch. That's what you're supposed to do. And I don't know, we'll have to go because one thing says that the advanced stats have him
because he gets open
as one of the most. He was open they give yards of separation, and he was like the sixth most open receiver.
Well, that's why
yesterday
stats analytics for sure,
which is good, but he's very short. He was considerably shorter than LaShawn McCoy. He's got small hands. He's not particularly athletic. I like the fact that he gets open, but I was watching Dallas yesterday, the team that would refuse to use him, and they used Randall Cobb in a very similar way. That guy's been shot for a couple of years now, and the offense ran better with it. Now I know there's a big difference, and Kellen Moore put up a good game plan and stuff. I'm not going to go too much into the Dallas game plan,
and salary there's a little factor. Like, what does Randall Cobb make? Like $2 million.
Well, that's the thing. No, I think that he got like a fair 1-year deal. I thought it was like 5 or so.
Okay.
But yeah, for guys that aren't that similar in age either, I don't think, because Cole Beasley's sneaky old.
Yep.
And Cobb's.
Yeah, he's 30. Cole Beasley's 30.
And Randall Cobb's probably 30, 31, right? I mean.
Randall Cobb he signed a $2 million base. I can't really find his full contract here. He's 29, so he's younger.
So he's younger than Cole Beasley and didn't get a long-term deal. And
he has a couple bonuses. So he's making 4.5 against the cap with a $2 million base salary. I mean, the Bills committed serious money to him, so it's not like, I think Cole even alluded to that. Like the Cowboys came in with a little bit lower of an offer. So they might have preferred to have Beasley at this position, and maybe due to the opponent, and we get to really do apples to apples this week, Jason. It's all full circle to kind of see what Cole does against in the slot and what Randall did against the Giants. So we'll be able to have a really good comparison on our next week Monday show. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think there's something to 5 for 9 targets, and then Zay Jones 2 for 5. That's 7 for 14. It's 50% when you throw to Cole Beasley or Zay Jones yesterday. You're not going to take a fit. You get ran out of the league as with a 50% completion percentage. So yeah, some's on the quarterback. Some's also on the receivers there to bring in that ball. And did want to have a quick time to say one of my least favorite draft picks was Dawson Knox, and his one catch for 1 yard and his one drop don't really do anything to say I was wrong yet. Converted quarterbacks at tight end never was my thing. You had one, and that's kind of, to me, always the ceiling, but I guess they see more and spark scores and other with Dawson. Tommy Sweeney is just the tight end one to me right now, 2 for 35. So he had a 29-yard catch. I thought he was a pretty good, he gets open, he blocks. He's a good player. And obviously Tyler Kroft has proven to be at least a good, decent player too. Are you worried about Knox? Or do you think he'll pick it up? He's a guy who never scored a touchdown at tight end.
Yeah, he was a project from the start, so I don't want to judge too early. He still was the leader in snaps at tight end. It does seem like his blocking is a little better than maybe people would have thought as a guy who converted from quarterback. And it is a little different than Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas played quarterback in college. He was listed. He played backup quarterback for a year or two into the league. Dawson Knox has a couple of years of tight end already in him. I didn't think it was going to happen immediately, and there is a pretty solid chance that Sweeney's the guy that looks like he was worth a third, and Dawson Knox is the guy that
I'm
looks like he
fine.
was
Yeah,
worth a
if that's the
seventh.
case, whatever.
Then whatever. Then I think you still got the production. Right now I'm not going to be as worried about Knox because I think whether we scouted or whatever, we lucked into Sweeney, and right now we just need somebody to occupy that role. And I think going forward, probably if they're going to continue him into his current role, you're going to see a bunch of Sweeney 2 for 30 games, which are really nice for a second tight end, third tight end. He was third in tight end snaps. He only played 23 snaps in the game. That's a pretty good output as far as he goes.
I'm still getting used to them as players because Dawson didn't play a lot in the preseason. So Dawson Knox is, 6'4", 254. He wears number 88. Okay. So you compare that to my guy, Sleeper Sweeney, who is 6'4", 251 and wears 89. So I'm still getting used to them both, especially if I'm only getting angles and side views and see just the 8 and a tight end running down the field that look pretty similar in height.
I think Knox has some flow coming back.
He has some flow, but Tommy Sweeney has that Rob Johnson headband with the flow too.
Yeah, Sweeney, like, just on looks bulkier.
Yeah, he's a little bulkier.
I almost think that I would mix him up with Lee Smith more than.
But he's not technically heavier. They're both 6'4". He's 3 pounds lighter, right?
Yeah, well, sometimes your weight distributes in ways that
that's true.
In different things, and Knox definitely looks like the leaner sort of guy. Like, if you looked at the two, you would assume that he's the better athlete.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's always a case of the chicken legs. I'm not saying either of them have chicken legs, but you know what I mean. Tommy's, he's lighter than. I mean, I just think the more the point of this was that I think they're developing 2 rookie tight ends that wear one number apart that have the same height and weight. So it takes a while, and I'm going to watch them film, and I do have some footage that I'm going to run back to see if I can tell how the blocking and other parts of the game, or if they were open when Josh didn't see them and things like that. But Josh Allen came back in this game, had a really great, to kind of cap it off, had that great touchdown run, but the defense held. And then he drove him all the way down the field and had a great Smokey Brown touchdown, back shoulder throw, just perfectly placed over Darryl Roberts, right?
Yes.
And
bad cornerback.
Yeah, bad cornerback name too. Just Darryl Roberts. I don't think he's going to be good at cornerback. And he looks like, so we'll just spend a quick second here. He looks like a wide receiver 1. He was wanted by the Bills last year, picked Baltimore. The Bills went out and paid him this year and said they didn't throw to you when Lamar Jackson went in, and he's their quarterback now. Now we have a guy that's going to gunsling to you. Look at what Robert Foster did. Basically took his job. He's a better player. And look at what the production, as Robert Foster would have been this guy last year, but John Brown 7 for 123, 17.6 yards a catch, touchdown, long of 38 and 10 targets, 70% catch rate there in targets to receptions. I mean, nothing more can be said than he's got a chance to be a legitimate wide receiver 1, legitimate guy you have to man, guy that can open up the field, and if you're a player, a fantasy player. So what's your kind of opinion on that last drive and what you saw from Brown and the Allen to Brown connection?
Yeah, I mean, if you're paying attention at all in training camp or what people are saying at this point, or even studied him in the past, he's definitely much more of a refined receiver than just the guy who runs straight down the field. And you have to learn that, because as you get older, maybe you start to lose a little bit of speed, even though it certainly doesn't seem like he's lost a lot of it. And, when you become a slower NBA player, you learn how to shoot a 3. You can't just blow by people anymore. And he learned how to do some good route running. And even though the touchdown is basically in a vertical, but he came back to the ball was underthrown, whether that was intentional or not. I like to think that was placed pretty well, and he was able to come back to it. That's a pretty regular play that happens in the NFL, even if PFF scores it as him underthrowing the ball by 5 yards. I still think he put him in the position for a touchdown and should probably get credit for that. But he looks good, and everybody said he's a complete receiver in training camp, and even the practices that we saw. That became very evident it became evident very early on in this process after we had signed him that, all right, this guy they're going to at least try to make him the number 1, and certainly in practice and in scrimmages and all of that, he looked like he was going to be that guy. And early returns are, he really is shaping up to, possibly be a 1,000+ yard receiver guy. And whether he just hadn't gotten the opportunity before, or he's the best version of John Brown, today than he's ever been. He's in the position to be that guy. So yeah, I mean, there's no reason other than, or there's no other way to feel than just to be pleased about it. And in general, I mean, it does seem like, even though we have the 5, 6 receivers, including Roberts,
Mm-hmm.
it's basically Brown and Beasley on the field. Brown played 86% of the snaps. Beasley played 70%. Nobody else played more than 50%. Zay Jones was only at 42%. Robert Foster played 15 plays. Isaiah McKenzie played 4. These are offensive counts, not including special teams. Thanks, Joe Biscaglia. And so we're going to see a lot of Brown and Beasley, even though it wasn't always the two of them. It was a lot of Brown, Beasley, and Sweeney out there. You had those DeMarco plays early in the game, but they've made it clear that Brown's the guy. It's not a 4-headed monster or anything. It's going to be Beasley across the middle, and it's going to be Brown relied on to really carry the bulk of the wide receiver one stuff. And for as many people who said in training camp that it was going to be sort of a fluid situation and wide receiver ones don't exist anymore, he played 86% of the snaps and Zay Jones played 42%. So he's shown to be the guy. And yeah, early returns say this is the guy, and we're gonna really rely on him. We're gonna put a lot on his shoulders, and I'm pretty happy about it so far.
I couldn't be even a little bit more. I just love John Brown. I think he's one of my sleeper players, not because I cover the Bills or follow the Bills or whatever. He's just a receiver one that's good. I liked him in Baltimore his entire career. Liked him in Arizona as well. So he's a good football player. I was happy to see him sign with the Bills. He got paid. So a lot of people are like, well, he's always been kind of like a receiver 2, receiver 3, and he's getting decent sized money, but. Robert Wood shows us what can happen when you're used in the offense and wanted. There's no overpayment to me at that position. So John Brown is, to me, player of the game. He gets my Kevin's player of the game for his performance yesterday, for his 7 catches for 123 yards and touchdown. Jason, your player of the game?
I'd love to say the whole defense, but to put out a specific guy, I mean, I think we have to mention Devin Singletary at this point.
Sure.
Really changed the game and the complexion of it once he started getting the ball more. As you did allude to earlier, it played the majority of the snaps. It's just that Gore was the guy getting the ball earlier in the game. Singletary played 48 snaps, which was 70% of the game. Gore had 19 for 28%. Yeldon was on the field for 2 for 3%. So they did rely on him in a lot of the situations for the, just being on the field, even though they really didn't put the running backs in pass pro at all, really.
One snap out of 4 the tight ends and running backs. They all of them combined, and was Singletary in for 1 snap for pass pro,
which is amazing. But
yep.
They found a way to get him into the game and design some stuff for him and get him onto open space. And obviously the CJ Mosley thing helped a little bit. And I'm not usually somebody that thinks that one guy going out makes that big of a difference, but he really was having like an outstanding game to that point. So I think that helped a little bit, open some stuff up, especially with the lack of depth.
He was a known run stopper, and he's a negative player in the pass game. So I heard, but I saw him break up 2 touchdowns. So
that one that he turned around on there and probably got lucky on was amazing. But
yep.
Singletary, I mean, I don't think any player in this game shifted momentum like he did and really made those big plays. And they're just going to continue to rely on him more and more. So I think that I would say that Josh Allen made a positive step today, but I think one of the big positives I have going forward is that we have a starting running back, and with Gore, Frank Gore looked like Frank Gore, and bless him, still playing this long. And I think he's still going to provide something for this team. We really do have a wide receiver or running back one sort of wrapped up all in one player, because one of the things about him coming out of college was that he didn't really catch the ball much at FAU, and he's shown very, very capable of that, even adjusting in places where it'd be difficult for another running back. And he can be, your 3-down guy. You don't have to split it in between Frank Gore and then Yeldon on your passing situations or whatever. I thought he was just really outstanding, and I still think that he, even on his big plays, like you can see where his limits are athletically, but he really just has great vision and has great feel for the game, and that's only continued. And you don't always know. Sometimes there's guys who are just such non-athletes that it's not going to translate over, and that's how a guy drops to the third round. You don't know if once he gets out of the Sun Belt or whatever it is that or maybe he's an AAC guy, that's going to translate over to the game. But so far with flying colors, he's shown that he is an NFL player, and those sort of instincts translate right over to the NFL. So I don't think there was anything that made me happier in that game than him doing that, besides maybe Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver looks like a beast.
Yeah, FAU is in the Conference USA, so just
okay. So I got it wrong twice.
It's okay.
Majors are.
I just know that because I'm a mid-major football fan. So
yeah,
that's easy for me. And I think I could
name like all of the teams in the conference, but I couldn't think of which not very good conference I was in.
I think I can name a majority of mid-majors in their conference, and I still will struggle occasionally with the Power 5 realignments if like someone switches. But anyways,
Nebraska and Maryland are going to have still mess me up for 10 years.
I know, exactly. And then you have, so Yahoo tweeted that Josh Allen had to kind of wrap up the game with the fourth best adjusted completion percentage yesterday. Yesterday. So there's that. So factoring in the drops that we talked about and other things, Josh Allen with the fourth best completion percentage yesterday. So played a pretty good football game. Wasn't perfect. For the one thing Josh did have was ball security most of the year in terms of running the ball and fumbles. Didn't have it yesterday. So it's kind of a weird trade-off there. So final point of the game that Greg Thompson of Cover One Buffalo, and make sure you check out Cover One Buffalo and all of our other entities here. This show is brought to you by Cover One. Download the app. The Slack channel is roaring. I was talking to Jason about that. Really, some of the best takes by Eric and Greg and Aaron and some of the other team members are on that Slack channel. They talk, they communicate. There's fantasy. There's a whole bunch of, it's a community. Check that out. Just download the app. You get the Premier membership. Check that out. Download the app. You get pushed. The show gets pushed to you. Their shows get pushed to you. Whatever you want, however much or little you want, you get, and you get that Slack group and other Premier insider articles. So, make sure you go and check that out if you haven't already.
You won't ever have to go on Twitter ever again.
No, you don't want to.
Those guys break news quicker than Adam Schefter almost. If there's news and you're in the room, everybody's got it within a second. So.
There's been 100+ new tweets or messages in Slack since we've been recording, for instance. So Eric put some of his content on there. So there's good information about other teams and different channels. So make sure you check that out. So along those lines, Greg did say, everyone's talking about turnover differential, but a huge point they focused on their show is toxic differential. Guess what? Buffalo won 7-4 because they had 6 plays of 20+ and they gave up 0. So the toxic differential 7-4, meaning the 4 turnovers and the 7 negative plays by the Jets. So that's probably a main reason they were able to combat that. Right, Jason?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. That's why you can't just look at completion percentage or just look at these raw numbers. The fact is that they limited a Jets team from breaking out anything big, and the Jets, to for the Bills' benefit, didn't push them. And I wouldn't want to push Hyde and Poyer either, or the Trey White, who they got early in the game on a decent throw, and then really didn't go back at him for quite a while. Levi Wallace really played well, even if it wasn't always pretty on some of those breakups. That one that he seemed to not see.
Dude's got good football luck. He just
he makes his luck. He's a limited athlete and
knows how to make his luck. Yeah, it's like a soccer player.
He's a good football player. It's almost like Singletary. And good football players, it sometimes works.
Play good football. It's that simple that sometimes that luck, just like Mosley on the pass breakup, sometimes you're in position to have luck. So definitely that's the case with Levi Wallace and obviously Singletary in his early days. But final tweet for the day on Josh Allen, Rich Ornberger said, which first-round quarterback should have changed positions? He thinks Josh Allen, and Rich Ornberger is the ex-Patriot Cardinal Chargers former player, thinks that Josh Allen should have switched positions from quarterback. So
when did you tweet that?
Just recently.
Like after the fourth quarter drive?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Today. Yeah.
Him thoroughly outplaying Sam Darnold for.
Just thought that was really funny that you think that he could play a different position after.
I don't know. He could play tight end. I just don't think it's his best position.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So interesting thought. I wanted to get that. Jason, you tweeted something, a poll today. Or was it yesterday? I don't remember.
It was yesterday. Actually, conveniently enough, a few minutes ago, I got the official 24-hour results on it.
Okay, had 175 votes. Jason asked, would you rather face Eli or Daniel Jones next week? 65% Eli, 35% Daniel Jones. Does that shock you?
No, it doesn't shock me, but I don't agree. I think in almost all situations, I'm going to take the rookie starting his first game. I know that people, think that Eli's sort of established as not a good quarterback anymore. I wouldn't totally argue with that. But, I mean, I don't know. I just would rather face the 0 snaps of experience or like whatever it is, 15 snaps of experience now instead of the 16, 17 years at this point. Eli's been even in this offseason, like he's the guy practicing with the ones. He's the guy who has the rapport with Sterling Shepard, who may or may not be in concussion protocol right now, or have, familiarity with Saquon and the 4 running backs they have there that have all been there before. It's, I'm not very scared of either one. And I get the fact that maybe Daniel Jones, people are thinking that like there's this 10% chance that he has this ridiculous game and Eli doesn't have that in him. But like, I'd still argue that Eli has that same percentage. I mean, right. I don't think it's a high percentage that he just plays out of his mind, but you get him on the right day. You don't get to him. Get some guys that are open. I know it's less likely with Benny Fowler and Cody Latimer, but I would still take Eli in that chance in terms of making more out of it. And, just being prepared. Like, you've just seen so many quarterbacks that just that just get deer in headlights, that don't know how to fully prepare for a game yet. The first time that they see certain defenses or certain coverages, certain disguises that just never even cross your mind in the ACC, and it just totally messes up a game. And that's not going to happen to Eli. Eli might stink, but I would still rather play the rookie that doesn't have the experience.
Yeah, you had some commenters joining. You had VJ say Eli is a 38-year-old statue in the pocket. If we can get any pressure, it's game over. But then you had Christopher Fenton say, surprised to see Eli win by such a wide margin. Give me the rookie's first start all day. So you kind of had both sides there.
I kind of agree with Christopher on that one.
Yeah, okay. So there's the two different sides of the debate, I guess, right within 2 tweets of each other. So
yeah, and I think those are the exact arguments you would make.
Okay.
But I think there's a little bit of an overreaction to the level of hopeless that Eli Manning is. I don't think he's good. I don't think he's consistently good. He's been inconsistent for a while, but I still think that he can pull that game out of him under the right circumstances.
I think he can beat anyone under the right circumstances. Seriously.
He proved it. Both of his Super Bowls are basically that exact thing.
Right. So that's a good point. And I'm Team Jones. We saw even like we are big, we're big Elam guys now, and then most Buffalo is at this point. No one wanted to draft him. Similar, basically the same story with Jones, really from the same type of pick range. Did he go 7th too, right? Did he go 7th?
He went 6th.
6th, there you go, right. But okay, 7th was both Josh Allen's, went back to back on Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. So right, same pick range. I mean, they're no one was really a fan of it. I potentially think Josh Allen had more talent, but there was a lot more. I mean, it was a pretty black and white on him. And then, Jones, same way, but probably more negative opinions on him than when no one really wanted to take him, especially in the top 6. I'd love to have that guy's first game, even Josh Allen and others. I mean, Sam Darnold, even, Baker Mayfield wasn't perfect, whoever you want to point to. And neither of them were perfect yesterday either. So I'd love to see, I would love to see Jones tomorrow. I mean, there's no way around that Daniel Jones' first start is going to be 20 for 35 for 170 yards and 2 picks.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously different players, but you just look at the way that Kyler Murray started yesterday. Really, really awful first half. Did end up making some plays, which got them to a tie, but I think still only completed 51% of his passes. That's the first overall pick with a guy that's considered to have a lot more talent. And even though Arizona is pretty bad, those are pretty similar offensive rosters as far as that goes.
Yeah, sure are.
Haskins isn't ready. Minshew came in and it played really well, but played, against the Chiefs prevent essentially. First game rookies, especially guys who don't, that was the thing too, is that Elam came in and obviously was a project, but also wasn't the guy taking, he was splitting at best, getting a third of the snaps,
right.
Very few with the first team during his first training camp. And when you're not expected to be the starter and then you go in and start a game, or you come into the game halfway, you just have a different level of preparedness than I'm trying to think who was the last quarterback to just start to finish, get every snap starting a training camp. I guess it's been a while.
Russell Wilson randomly. I don't know if we're going that far back.
Yeah, Russell. I was just trying to think of the 5 guys last year.
Oh, okay.
I guess
Darnold was really close-ish, wasn't he?
Darnold was close, but they still pretended that McCown was going to start the training camp. Mayfield obviously didn't. Rosen didn't. Rosen was close, though.
Allen didn't. He was in a 3-way battle, which was stupid. Yeah. Which he did. Lamar Jackson obviously didn't.
I guess it's something that doesn't happen that much, but I do think
did Goff?
Situation. Yeah, Goff was
he Case Keenum, right?
Yeah, I feel like there's almost like 100% certainty that like Case Keenum or Sam Bradford was there for his first year.
Yeah,
Goff was like a second half of the year starter. It seems like how this always goes, but I just feel like if all of these teams end up in every one of them by week 8 of their seasons, all of those guys in that class ended up starting. I don't understand why you don't just give that guy a training camp and a full off season of preparation. I mean,
we'll see about Gardner Minshew. Like he's slaying. I mean, I know it was like you said, mop up duty, but I mean, I think that's impressive in the first place to be able to do that, and I think that just shows that you're right that these guys have this opportunity. And speaking of that, we have quarterback trade, so we do have Pittsburgh trading Dobbs to Jacksonville for a 5th round pick. Speaking of,
didn't know that was his value, but.
So 5th round, future 5th seems to be the value for these backup quarterbacks, by the way, because it's what the Bills got a couple of times. So that's a thing.
Can I pose a question to you, or a few of them?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just looking at this right now. I have snap counts up. I just want you to tell. I'm going to give you a snap count of a player or a group of players. I want to tell you if that means anything or not.
Okay.
So TJ Yeldon got 2 snaps on offense. Do you think he has a bigger role or not in the future? Do you think this is just an anomaly, or do you think that's going to be kind of what his role is as long as Singletary and Gore are healthy?
I think he'll have a bigger role. I think that's game flow dependent. For whatever reason, DeMarco had a bigger role. You had some receivers with bigger roles.
It does seem like DeMarco will probably go sort of in and out of.
You're right. There's no way that's the plan.
Considering he got a 5th of last year's snaps in that game.
Right.
How about Kevin Johnson getting 0?
That might be the way that goes. Though we did just see a Taron Johnson injury. Forgot to note that today. That I don't know if he's going to be out never or 1 week or 2 weeks or forever. It could be any of those because we don't know. Most people are saying he's not going to jump in. So
it looks like. I mean, I would guess it's going to be Neal again. It looks like if he's going to have any extended time, they might need to make a move. But as far as their breakdown went,
I guess that's probably what's going to happen. I mean,
they basically
you would need an injury to a boundary.
The same nickel every play. White and Wallace played every single snap. The Johnson or Neal combination played 92%. And there was not another cornerback or safety that played in the game other than the 2 starters in those 3 positions.
How did they fit in Lorenzo?
Lorenzo played 36% of the snaps in the game.
Who came out?
He only played 26 snaps.
because Milano and
and those
Edmonds
were
played
the only
100.
linebackers to play in the game.
Right.
They rotated heavily on the defensive line, including 13 plays from Daryl Johnson, which is kind of interesting.
Okay.
Starr and the two Phillipses played 30, 25, and 24 snaps. Oliver had 47, so easily outpaced those guys. I just thought those were some interesting breakdowns that they basically in the back seven really didn't. I mean, that's about as little rotation as you're going to get for a secondary and linebackers. Pretty much just
Lorenzo coming in and an injury.
Lorenzo coming off and on the field.
Yeah, and one injury.
And then, Trent Murphy surprisingly played 79%. Hughes got 69%. Lawson had 31%, and Daryl Johnson had those 13 for 18%, which is, actually a good indication that they like him in the game. Also a good indication for Shaq Lawson, I thought had a really nice impact on the game for only 22 snaps. So
yeah, that's a good impact for only playing.
That's a good third D end to put in for 22 snaps, really.
And like you said, Kevin Johnson had no snaps, so that's a really talented active game day defense. Straight up to be able to not miss a big beat, putting in Neal. Johnson has some big plays. He was struggling with Crowder a little bit, but I guess that's the way the cookie crumbles with Crowder. 14 for, it was just more big spots that I struggle with Taron Johnson. He makes a good play. He makes a good play in the runs defense, and then he can't keep his man coverage.
The Bills have definitely had a history of that over the last couple of years with your Leonard Johnsons and so forth.
Nicole Roby-Coleman was the man. I think he was the best one. He was just like 5'1", right?
Roby-Coleman?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was a good coverage. He just had that sort of limited. Actually, would be pretty similar to Johnson, just as like way too small, but did play very aggressively. But those guys in general, especially under McDermott, does seem like that's sort of the player they want at that nickel position, including playing safeties there in the past at times and converting Neal over there.
Right.
It does seem like there's a sort of a preference to use him as sort of half linebacker or safety, half coverage guy. Because he is the closest in, he's closer to the center of the field than those outside cornerbacks. So you do want to have that sort of physicality, and it does seem like that's what they value. Even with Taron Johnson is a pretty slender guy. That's definitely his calling card right now. Is like,
and he was decent when he plays. I don't mean to dog him. He played a decent half of a year, but he's got to stop getting hurt. That's these soft tissue.
That's kind of the problem, is that his build doesn't line up with how physical he is, and I think that those things are, you can have that build if you're a wide receiver and you're staying on the outside and you're getting hit 3 times a game, and most of the time you get to run out of bounds. If you're going to be expected to play in the run game or go and come up on a tight end catching a ball or something, that might not be the build for you. So it'll be interesting. Like I think his play is mostly positive, but I don't know that that's not going to continue happening.
Right. Yeah. That's a good
at his size. So we'll see. I'm not going to write someone off or call him injury prone yet in his, the 17th game since he started his career, but it is something to watch for, and you're going to have to monitor it at this point. And we may have to get into the situation where, a Captain Munnerlyn or somebody like that comes back on this team.
We'll find out tomorrow. Speaking of Marlowe, I think he's the guy that would miss out on that spot. 5 safety is just not going to be too much. You have a good-looking, promising, inactive safety already in Jaquan Johnson. Pretty good starting 2 and maybe the best combo. And then you have a good backup in Kurt Coleman. Not much.
Those 3 didn't play defense.
No. Did Coleman even play yesterday? He didn't get in because you said the safeties played 100, right?
Yeah, I don't have the special teams numbers, but yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sure he played teams.
Safeties played in the game.
Okay.
in terms of defense.
Okay, so much for that. People are saying he could come in. No way. They're not going to take off their 4 best defensive backs. And, man, Levi Wallace was a find, speaking of the Devils. So between the 4 D-backs, I think they're great in the back. They have some depth there with Kevin Johnson. They've already faced an injury, and Neal came in and does a slight, tiny step. I love Neal's game a lot of the time, and then he's kind of similar but different in a way that I like a lot of his plays, and then he has just a couple of boneheaded ones. So he's just adjusting to corner. But he can play safety in a pinch too. Between that, I think you got to let Marlowe go, and you got to pick up a guy like Captain just to put him on the roster. So we'll see if that comes to fruition, or another potential nickel guy, or if they're going to call up Cam Lewis. Might be time for my guy UB's Cam Lewis. So we'll see. Yeah. We're on watch of backup nickel, or maybe even we'll see what happens if obviously Neal's going to step in. But they like to have a backup nickel, hence why Neal was the guy, and Cam Lewis was really working that role all off season. So. He's competing with Neal. So we're going to see what's going to happen here if Cam Lewis is healthy and gets the call up. Was playing well in preseason before that neck injury. He's on the practice squad, so imagining he's fairly healthy. And then, or if it's going to be Captain Munnerlyn or nothing. So if it's not a serious injury. So we'll keep you posted here on the next show. Jason, 2 final questions from 2 of our viewers, or listeners, I should say. We have Donna. She wants to know, do you think the no huddle K-gun type offense will throw more uncertainty into opposing Ds on game planning? Do you think that will show teams like, the Bills might be doing this now?
Yeah, I think obviously one thing that they like to do.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to definitely throw some uncertainty into this situation. No doubt about it. So there's that portion of it. And then we had another question from Richard Perks. Dick Perks wants to know, I noticed in the past game that the flat was open a lot of the time, but rarely utilized until late. Will we see this option used more to get Singletary into the open field more? I don't know about that one. But yeah, I mean, obviously Singletary needs to get on the field more. And you saw Mosley go off, and he's going to be the guy that is going to be pivotal in this whole situation. So at least with Singletary's numbers really inflating like that. So I think that there's something to be said for that. But Singletary's definitely going to catch some more balls in the flat. He's going to get a lot more playing time, or at least a lot more touches in this whole thing. But I mean, what an action-packed show. We really appreciate everybody tuning into this one. And there's going to be our pregame show for the Giants game here coming up. So, tune into that. But from the Kevin and Jason show presented by Cover One, I'm Kevin, and that's Jason.